Go ahead. So remember first to visualize the merit field, or the refuge field, in the space in front of us, and ourselves surrounded by all sentient beings. So we're there with all beings, the holy ones and the ordinary ones. And we think that all of our minds are now turned towards the Dharma. And so we take refuge and generate bodhicitta together.
I take refuge
until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by yielding to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
May all sentient
Beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. And we'll have a few minutes of silent meditation to let the mind relax, get rid of extraneous thoughts so we can focus on the talk. And then after that, we'll generate our motivation. So let's cultivate our motivation. Since we all have the incredibly rare opportunity to take monastic ordination and to follow the Buddhist teachings, and with an awareness that this opportunity was created by causes and conditions and changes all the time, then let's make a strong determination to really take advantage of it while we have it. And especially to use it to generate the bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And to do that, in order to repay the kindness of the three jewels and the kindness of sentient beings. So take a moment and generate your motivation. So before we begin, I want to introduce you to Care Bear. Who is crowned Yes. You'll remember that Lama Zopa Rinpoche was surrounded by stuffed animals. So the Abbey follows in that tradition. But Care Bear is also to let you know that you are cared for. Yeah, that you are not just some body sitting there, and even though we're speaking over Zoom, that, you are important and we care about you. Okay. So, what I thought I'd talk about today is a short verse that we recite at the Abbey in the morning, everybody, both lay people and monastics. It's called the Monastic Mind Motivation, and it's to help us remember what a monastic mind is so that we know what kind of things to cultivate during the day as we live our lives. So I'll read the whole thing through and then I'll go through it line by line. We'll see how far I go. I am a Rinpoche's disciple, so I usually don't finish things. It takes me a few talks to do that, but we'll see. Okay, so here's the verse. Having a monastic mind benefits our Dharma practice, whether we are monastics or lay practitioners. A monastic mind is one that is humble, is imbued with the Buddhist worldview, dedicated to cultivating mindfulness, introspective awareness, love, compassion, wisdom, and other good qualities. Being mindful of the kindness I have received from all sentient beings, I will relate to them with patience, kindness, and compassion. I will be mindful of my precepts and values and will cultivate introspective awareness of my thoughts and feelings, as well as how I speak and act. I will take care to act and speak at suitable times and in appropriate ways, abandoning idle talk and disruptive movements. With respect for others and confidence in my own good qualities, I will be humble and easy for others to speak to. In all these activities, I will endeavor to remember impermanence and the emptiness of inherent existence and to act with bodhicitta. Okay, so this is what is recited every morning, right? Okay, so let's go back to the beginning and unpack it. Okay, so a monastic mind is one that is humble. Humble. Oh my goodness. I don't want to be humble. I want to be somebody. Yeah, I want people to notice me. I want to be the perfect monastic that everybody looks up to. Yeah. And somebody who has the answer for every Dharma question, who can give the right advice for everything that happens. And then people will appreciate me. They will respect me. Who needs humility? Okay, so there you see why we need humility. Yeah, what is going on in our minds and what the training is often don't match. Okay, so we sometimes think humility means lacking self-confidence. Just sitting there like this. Oh, I'm humble. I don't say anything. No. If you look at His Holiness Dalai Lama, he is really humble. And yet he has complete self-confidence. And he's not arrogant. And he's not stuck in poor quality view either. Okay? So when you have actual self-confidence in yourself, then you can be humble and you can put other people in front of you. Yeah, you can give other people credit. When we're insecure, that's when we start acting quite arrogant. It's a cover-up for our lack of self-confidence. Yeah. So it's interesting because we usually think that self-confidence goes together with arrogance or with pride. It doesn't. Real self-confidence doesn't need to be proud. It doesn't need to be recognized and praised. Yeah. It's when we're really self-confident, we can be humble and we feel no ego threat at all. Yeah. And I always like to tell a story about His Holiness regarding this regard. The year that he got the Nobel Peace Prize, he was in California for a conference. And he was a speaker on a panel with all sorts of experts. And at one time, somebody in the audience asked a question to His Holiness, yeah, and His Holiness paused and thought about it. And then he said, in front of thousands of people at the conference, the expert speaker, the Dalai Lama, said, "I don't know." Can you imagine that? We would never say, "I don't know." We would change the topic. We would humiliate the person who asked the question. We would invent something even though we didn't know the answer. Anything, but be humble and tell the truth and say, "I don't know." And then His Holiness turned to all the other experts on the panel and said, "What do you people think?" He did this with complete self-confidence. He had nothing to prove. Yeah. And he wasn't afraid of not knowing. He was completely comfortable in his own skin with saying what was true about him at that moment. Okay? So when we're humble, there's an openness about us. When we try to be somebody, it's very off-putting, yeah? Because we're not being ourselves, we're not being comfortable. We're trying to be some image we have, yeah? So I talk about this because I don't know about you, but especially after I ordained, I had this expectation of, and this desire, this aspiration to be the perfect monastic. I didn't want to be grade B or grade C monastic. I wanted to be the perfect one, because I really felt my teacher's kindness in ordaining me. Yeah, and I wanted to attain enlightenment in this very life, like they promised. Okay, by the way, His Holiness later said to me, "That's propaganda." That you can aspire for enlightenment in this life, but don't count on it. Yeah, so I tried so hard to be the perfect monastic, and it didn't work. Yeah, it just didn't work. One was because of the cultural difference between the Tibetan monastics and us Westerners. But more than that, it was just learning to accept myself. Yeah, and I have virtuous aspirations, and it's going to take time to become like that, and I can't fake it. Yeah, you try and be the perfect monastic, it's unfakeable. You can't do it right. Yeah, you try and be that, but people see that you aren't, and you know that you aren't. Yeah, so it's much more realistic and kind to others and to ourselves just to accept where we're at and go forward from there. Yeah, Lama Yeshe had one of his short little quips was good enough, dear. Yeah, good enough, dear. Yeah, he called everybody dear, and he kept telling us we were good enough. And of course, we didn't believe him. We thought we should be better. But, his meaning was that what we are is the reality of who we are at this moment. So it needs to be good enough. Yeah? It is good enough. That doesn't mean we don't grow and change in the future. Of course we do. Yeah. But where we're at now, for where we compared to where we came from and all of our previous conditioning, it's good enough, and we will improve from there. Okay, so monastic mind is one that is humble, imbued with the Buddhist worldview. This is really important, okay? And sometimes I wonder if it gets skipped over in the West, yeah? Because to really understand the Dharma and to practice it, we have to have, the view of multiple rebirths, karma and its results, the view of emptiness. We don't need to realize all these things, but this needs to be our worldview of what we think the world is and our place in it. Okay? Now, of course, when you're just being introduced to Buddhism, that's not necessary. Okay? But if you really want to generate bodhicitta, if you want to generate emptiness, wisdom realizing emptiness, it's difficult to see that happening if we don't believe in rebirth and karma. Yeah, if we don't believe that things are changing moment to moment, if we don't believe that things lack any inherent existence. So it's good in our practice to really take the time to meditate on these topics and contemplate the disadvantages of samsara. Yeah. And what I find very often happens in the West is people go to Tantra very quickly. Yeah. Like one or two Dharma teachings, sometimes not even that. And then they're taking an empowerment. And then they get confused afterwards. Yeah, what did I just do? Yeah. So it's really important. Go slowly. We need to have a very solid base before we construct walls, before we put on the roof. Vajrayana's the roof, okay? And it needs to be supported by the strong walls of the bodhisattva practice and the foundation of the pratimoksha and the fundamental vehicle, the Four Truths. Okay, this is quite important, and so don't rush through all of that. Because I just meet a lot of people with a lot of confusion because of jumping to Tantra very quickly. Yeah. Okay, so monastic mind is one that's humble, imbued with the Buddhist worldview, dedicated to cultivating mindfulness, introspective awareness, love, compassion, wisdom, and other good qualities. Okay, let's start with cultivating mindfulness. Here, Okay, mindfulness has many, many meanings, and Buddhist mindfulness is very different than secular mindfulness. So we need to be very clear about the difference, especially when people come to Buddhist monasteries. Yeah, we're not teaching secular mindfulness, we're teaching Buddhist mindfulness. And what did the Buddha tell us to be mindful of? Okay, what's going on with our body, our feelings, our mind, and then all the other phenomena, such as the mental factors. Okay, so this is a big thing to be mindful of. Yeah, when we are keeping the pratimoksha precepts, our monastic precepts, then mindfulness means being aware of our precepts. Yeah, being aware of the trainings, being aware of what the Buddha said as monastics we should do and what we should abandon doing. So to keep these in our mind so that when we go through our daily life, we act according to what we voluntarily chose to become. Okay? Of course, when you're cultivating concentration, then mindfulness means to hold the object of our meditation without letting it waver, without losing the object of meditation. Okay, so mindfulness has many different meanings. It also means memory. Okay, the Tibetan word also means to remember something. So we have to see what the context is. But as monastics, okay, talking from that perspective, yeah, to be mindful of our precepts, our trainings, yeah, to be mindful of our motivation, yeah, to cultivate bodhicitta when we do things, and to do that throughout the day. Here at the Abbey, we have we do the monastic mind in the morning, then we have a stand-up meeting, we have a verse there that we recite to remember our motivation. If you're working in the kitchen, there's another verse to recite. So all throughout the day, trying to remember our motivation, trying to remember our trainings, okay? And so we go into the day with that. So this should not be some heavy thing in our mind, like, oh, now I have all these precepts, I got to do everything perfect. No, don't go into that, I'm going to be the perfect monastic thing. You are in training, okay? And we are in training until we become Buddhas. So it's not like you do your training, you've graduated, and now you can do something else. I mean, until we become Buddhas, we are in training. Yeah? Then how do we maintain that mindfulness during the day of what we're saying and doing and thinking and feeling? We use the mental factor of introspective awareness. Sometimes that mental factor is translated as clear knowing, sometimes as alertness or vigilance. What it means is we monitor our body, speech, and mind. We're aware of what we're thinking and feeling and saying and doing, and then seeing if we are following our aspiration to live according to our precepts and our trainings and our values, And if we are, then we just keep doing what we're doing. And if we realize, I'm involved in idle talk, yeah, then you go, okay, let's change the topic or let's leave the situation. I don't want to gossip about other people. I don't want to spend my time talking about the sport, who won the whatever sports event there is. I want to keep my mind focused on what's important Okay, so that introspective awareness is quite important, and it's just kind of checking up from time to time what's going on. Okay, we usually are focused on the other people and in the objects around us. Okay, so we so often totally forget about ourselves. What's going on in me? How am I interpreting things? Am I seeing things correctly, or am I projecting, my own insecurities or my own cravings or my own aversions onto other people, onto the situation? Am I doing that, or am I seeing things freshly, just without all my imputations? Okay, and here when I'm saying imputations, I'm referring to what the Tibetans call namtok. Lama translated it as superstition. It's also translated as proliferations. I like the translation of proliferations because when we are projecting stuff on other people and on the situation, our mind is just proliferating. We have no idea really what's going on in our own mind because we're so busy saying, oh, that person doesn't like me and that person's judging me, and how do I look in front of all these people? Do they respect me, or do I look like a jerk? We're so busy with that kind of stuff that we don't even realize that that's what we're busy with. And so we judge other people. The judging mind? The mind that instead of looking at people saying they're suffering sentient beings, we look at people and say, I'm superior to that one. That guy's inferior. I'm competing with this one because they think I'm equal. And I'm I'm jealous of other people who are better than me. And so we're projecting, status on other people. We're projecting what we think they think on us. We're projecting safety or danger. Is my ego safe or is it not safe here? Okay. But we don't even realize it. And so this is where the introspective awareness is so important, because otherwise, we're just living in a world that we have projected, which we're doing anyway because we're projecting inherent existence on everything, But in addition to that, we're also, all of our judgments and everything else we're putting out there. Okay. So somebody doesn't say good morning to us. Why isn't that person saying good morning? They must not like me. Give them a break. Maybe they have a stomach ache. Maybe they're overslept. They aren't awake yet. Why do we put all this stuff on others, which we have no idea if it's really what's going on with them? Okay, so mindfulness, introspective awareness, love, wishing others to have happiness in its causes. It doesn't mean going up to everybody and throwing our arms around them and saying, I love you. We're not talking about that. We're monastics. Forget about romantic love. We've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, forget it. Okay? But what we're trying to do is open our hearts to other living beings and to see that they have feelings. They want to be happy, and we want them to be happy. So the other living beings we're with, even if we happen to go to town, we have to do something for the monastery, we're surrounded by other living beings. If you live out in nature, there's many more animals and insects than there are human beings. But to care about all of them and realize that they have feelings, and they're not objects for us just to move around so we can get what we want and avoid what we don't want. Okay, they're living beings with feelings. And, when we have the bodhicitta aspiration, we want, we say, oh, I want to become awakened for the benefit of all these living beings. Oh, but some of them are so troublesome. Yeah. Some of them are such jerks. How can I want them to be happy? Well, think about the people you don't like. Okay? Why are they acting the way they do? Is it because they're happy or is it because they're miserable? Yeah. If somebody is obnoxious, it's not because they're happy. Yeah. Somebody doesn't wake up in a bad mood and say, oh, I'm in such a horrible mood today. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, I got it all wrong. Somebody who's in a good mood, who has love in their heart, doesn't wake up in the morning and say, I feel so good, I think I'm going to go hurt somebody. So if people are being not so cooperative, something's going on with them. Yeah. And it's the same thing that goes on in us when we're not being so cooperative. Okay? So whatever we see in others, we can also find in ourselves. So here, love, wishing ourselves happiness, wishing others happiness. Yeah. Of course, wishing people happiness doesn't mean we wish that they get everything they want, because sometimes sentient beings are very confused about what is good for them, and they want what is poison. Yeah. So here it's really we care about their long-term benefit, and because they have feelings just like us. Yeah, they're not statues, they're not inanimate objects. Yeah. And what we do affects them. Yeah. It affects everybody who's near us. Yeah. And you can see we have lots of turkeys around here. I don't remember Nalanda having turkeys, but we have them here. Do you have turkeys? No, nobody's, you're all spaced out. Joking. Maybe. So, when we walk outside, we affect the turkeys. Yeah. So if we affect the turkeys, we certainly affect the human beings. Yeah. So to be careful of how we are affecting people, and that means being mindful of our facial expression, being mindful of how we move through space. Okay. The volume of our voice, the tone of our voice. Okay. So, if we have a heart that sees other living beings as kind, as valuable, then, we care, and then that automatically influences our behavior. Yeah. Okay, so love, wanting them to have happiness and its causes, that we could talk about for 3 countless eons, but I just did it in 3 minutes, abbreviated. And compassion, wishing sentient beings to be free of dukkha, And so here it's not just the ouch suffering of samsara, but to wish living beings to be free of dukkha, the unsatisfactory conditions that being in samsara entails. Okay? So this is a total change in how we see other living beings. Because I think our ordinary view is, first, what's important, I want happiness, I don't want unpleasantness. So my first objective in the day is to be with everything that gives me pleasant feelings and get away from everything and everyone that gives me unpleasant feelings. Yeah, right? Yeah? Can you say that that's what's going on every day? Yeah? And then we bump into all these other living beings and we see them through that lens of, are they going to give me pleasure or are they going to give me pain? Can I trust them to say nice things or can I not trust them because they're going to criticize me? Okay, will these people give me something or will they take my stuff? Yeah. Will they speak well of me behind my back or are they going to gossip and criticize me behind my back? And so we judge and we relate to other people, through the perspective of our afflictions. And no wonder we have problems and can't get along. Yeah. So when we're trying to cultivate love and compassion, it really entails a total switch of how we are seeing others, So we aren't seeing them in terms of how they relate to me. We're seeing them as living beings who want happiness, who don't want pain, who are confused, who are confused by the ignorance that grasps inherent existence, confused by lack of understanding of karma and its effects. We see them as beings who have afflictions, just like us. We see them as beings who are influenced by their past actions, their past karma, just like us. And that builds a kind of understanding of other living beings and a kind of tolerance. And by tolerance, I don't mean putting up with somebody that you really don't like. By tolerance, I mean an open acceptance of what sentient beings are. And we don't expect them to be Buddhas. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if everybody fulfilled all of my wonderful expectations, which means that they only praise me, they never point out my faults, they only speak well of me, they only give me the things I want, and they give me lots of the things that I want. Okay? So instead of seeing everybody like that, see them for what they are and what they're up against being in samsara. Yeah, that they're facing aging, sickness, and death, just like we are. Yeah, and when you're young, aging, sickness, and death it's just an idea. You have some kind of intellectual empathy. As you age, aging, sickness, and death become much more real to you. And what they actually entail becomes more real to you. Yeah, when you're younger, aging, sickness, I don't feel well, I stubbed my toe, I have a stomach ache. When you're older, sickness, it's like serious sickness, or you can't walk properly, or your mind's clouded, or whatever, okay? Aging, You know what they say in the teachings, that when you're young, if you looked in the mirror and saw what you looked like when you were old, you would probably faint. It's true. Yeah. Because even when you're old, you look in the mirror and you go, who in the world is that? You know, I'm still 21 with the maturity of somebody who's much older, and I'm going to live forever, except it doesn't look like that when I look at my face. Yeah. I not only look like my parents, I look like my grandparents, you know, and that's shocking. Okay. So really love, compassion, involves that way of seeing other living beings in quite a different way. Okay, next, wisdom. Yeah, well, yeah, the wisdom realizing emptiness, but we're pretty wise already, aren't we? They talk about the conventional wisdom. Yeah, we're pretty wise, you know, especially younger generation. You know how to attain single-pointed concentration on something this small. Yeah, wow. And you know how to fix it, and you're totally glued to it. Right? Yeah. And if somebody asks you to give up your phone, you say, wait, you're asking me to cut off my hand. I can't give up my phone. Yeah. I can't give up my computer. And I'm wise. I know how to fix the computer. I know how to code the computer. Yeah. I know how to fix the computer. I call somebody else who knows. Yeah, that's what I do. See how wise I am? I know who to call to fix the computer because I have no idea what's going on. Okay? But, you know, we often think, oh, I know this, I know that. Yeah, emptiness, yeah, it's a little bit harder. But we actually understand emptiness. Yeah, right? Yeah, we're the special disciples because of so much previous life familiarity. That deep inside of us, you know, we know things. Yeah, we know there's no thermos in this thermos. We know that. Yeah, we're almost awakened, you know. In fact, you know, maybe I'm a Rinpoche and they just haven't recognized me yet. Yeah, what do you think? Yeah, you think you're a Rinpoche and they just haven't recognized you because you have all this inner wisdom. Yeah, so much. And if they only recognized you, then, yeah, you could wear brocade. You can sit on a higher seat. You walk in front of everybody, and they all stand like this around you. And then you can pretend to be humble. That will really impress them with how great you are. Okay? But seriously, you know, to really try and apply wisdom, especially of impermanence and emptiness as far as we can at the beginning, and it gradually grows as we grow in the Dharma, to see the people and things around us. Yeah. And especially when you are plagued with attachment, especially to another person, ask yourself, who am I attached to? Yeah, who? And we have this idea of like some person inside that body that is just a number one super. Yeah. And you want a special relationship with that person. Yeah. Who in the world are they? Yeah. What do you want a special relationship with? Yeah. And then ask yourself, who is it who wants this? Yeah. And when somebody trashes you and criticizes you, who? Who are they criticizing? They're only criticizing me if I set up a truly existent me. Yeah. If there's just a body and mind and a very lightly designated I, independence on them, then I don't get hurt when people criticize. And I don't get uppity when people praise. Yeah. But when I think that there's something in there that's really me, then don't you dare criticize it. Yeah. Okay, so wisdom helps in that regard. And then other good qualities, well, there's lots of them. I think one that, there's a couple, especially as monastics, that are so important for us. One of them is integrity, okay? Sometimes you'll find it translated as shame. Shame is a horrible English translation, okay? It's one of the 11 virtuous mental factors. Shame is a horrible translation, okay? Because there's, in English, shame has two meanings. And the usual meaning is, I did something wrong and I'm ashamed, and something's wrong with me. Yeah? I was born defective, so I'm shameful. Yeah, that is not a virtuous mental factor. Yeah, that is leftover garbage from growing up in a Judeo-Christian culture. Okay. So actually it's integrity, And integrity, integrity has a good feeling to it, doesn't it? It's like, I'm clear on what my values are. I respect my values. I respect my precepts. And I'm going to do my best to live according to them because I respect myself. Yeah. I'm not trying to do this to put on a show for other people about how virtuous I am. I'm doing it because I respect myself and I have a sense of integrity and I don't want to mess up, even though I know I will sometimes. And when I will, then I need to do purification, and I do that purification. Yeah, I don't stuff it under the table and rationalize it. I purify when I mess up. Yeah. But I'm not full of shame, like I'm defective goods. Not like that. Yeah. His Holiness says bodhisattvas have to have a very, very strong self-confidence. But you have self-confidence without having a sense of an inherently existent self. Okay, chew on that for a little while. This is what we need. How does that work together? Okay, so integrity. And then the other one, it too is one of the 11 virtuous ones. Some people call it embarrassment. Also, I don't like that translation. How can embarrassment be virtuous? Like shame can't be virtuous. Yeah, so I call it consideration for others. In other words, we know that our actions affect others. We're aware of that. And we care about the effect our actions have on others. Yeah. we don't want to, we may be in a bad mood, but we don't want to dump that all on somebody else because we know it might adversely affect them. Yeah. If we're having a problem with anger that day, we can go to a friend and say, I'm angry. Will you help me with my anger? Yeah. And that's very different than going to a friend and say, I'm so angry because so-and-so did this and then they said that and they don't do this and nah. Okay. No, we don't do that. We have a sense of consideration for others. So we're willing to be open and admit that we're angry and that we need help to dissolve our anger. Yeah. We're not going to spend our time trashing somebody else and giving the person that we're dumping on, lots of negative energy. Yeah. We're going to try and really, we care about the effect we have on others. Yeah. If we slam doors, if we walk, stomp, if we talk loudly, yeah, then we recognize that affects other people. Similarly, if we talk so softly like this, we recognize that it also affects people because they can't hear us when they want to hear us. Okay, so not too loud, not too soft. Yeah, it affects others. Okay. So we abandon negativities because we know that our negativities affect others. Now, especially as a monastic, you're wearing a uniform, and so people are going to notice you when you're out in public. Some people say, oh, I don't like being noticed when I'm in public. This is restricting my freedom because they think I'm a monastic, so I better live up to their expectations. But I'm an imperfect sentient being. Okay, no, we're not talking about that. Yeah, who wants to do that? That is, Lama Yeshe said, be a good visualization for other people. Yeah, it doesn't mean making yourself so tense because you're trying to be perfect. Yeah, and it doesn't mean hiding all your faults, even though inside, blah. Yeah. It means, just accepting yourself and going forward with an awareness that your actions affect others and you really care about those others. You don't want them to be adversely affected. And with an awareness that sometimes you mess up and you got to purify. But you will learn from, every time I mess up, I want to learn from that mess up. So I come out with some wisdom that I didn't have before. Okay? So, you go out in town, some people feel like it's very skittish. Yeah, oh, I better dress in lay clothes when I go to town because I don't want people to notice me. Actually, I've never felt that. Yeah, and I go everywhere in my robes. The only time I didn't wear my robes was when I was going through immigration in Beijing many years ago. Yeah, I think probably it was smart that I didn't wear my robes then, but every other time, So it actually gives you a way, or it gives other people a way to start a conversation with you. And they do, yeah. I mean, we were in the store the other day and one lady came up to us and said, "Are you nuns?" And we said, "Yes." And her face lit up. She was so happy to meet nuns. Yeah. So, we represent in that way the the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We're trying to be good, good examples. As Lama said, give a good visualization. But we're not expecting ourselves to be perfect, and we're not expecting ourselves to be what we think they think we should be. Okay? Do you get what I mean? Because lots of times in our life, we aren't just who we are. We think, okay, in this situation, what do those people expect me to be? Okay, so then I project what I think they are projecting on me, and I try and be that. Okay, this is the prescription for going nutty. When you try and be what you think they think you should be. Okay, it's not going to work. Yeah. But everybody has their own good qualities, everybody has their own talents, and so you're there with your qualities and your talents, and you share them. And that's good enough, dear, as Lama would say. Okay, well, we did one whole verse. We are speeding along here. Okay, next verse. Being mindful of the kindness I have received from all sentient beings, I will relate to them with patience, kindness, and compassion. Okay, so this too is totally changing the way we view other sentient beings. Yeah, we are mindful of their kindness. So our assumption when we go in situations is that sentient beings are kind. We don't assume before we go in situations that they're mean and they're out to get us. This is, when His Holiness says, I see everybody as a friend, I think this is what he's talking about. Yeah, he goes in and he meets all sorts of people. Yeah, and some like him and some criticize him. I mean, look what comes out of Beijing, and also parts of the Tibetan community aimed at His Holiness. But His Holiness sees these people as kind, as friends. Yeah. And when we relate to people as if they're kind and friends, then they relate back to us that way. So a few of us here at the Abbey, I'm not sure at Nalanda if you do this, but we are active in prison work. So not only sending books and corresponding, but we'll go into prisons and lead meditation, give Dharma talks, and so on. And sometimes, people, when I first started doing this, people would say, aren't you afraid going into a prison? I mean, these people that you're going in with, oh, look what they've done. And I say, no. Yeah. Before I go into a prison, I usually do a short Chenrezig self-generation, like 2 minutes. And you go in the prison like that, and so you react to all these people who are locked up, who in their usual environment, nobody treats them nicely. Nobody treats them respectfully. But you go in and you treat them the same way you treat everybody else, because that's just your way of being with sentient beings. And all of a sudden, these people who are rapists and murderers, they talk, they're friendly. You realize, that most of them are very nice people. There's some who have very severe mental problems that's not getting treated properly when they're incarcerated. Yeah. But if you show respect, they show respect. Yeah. It's really kind of amazing to watch how that happens, And people who, if you read, their rap sheet, what they got arrested for, what they're in for, you would go, but then you meet them and you talk to them, and they're nice as can be, and they become your friends. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite amazing. Yeah, I remember the first time I slept in a house with somebody who had been incarcerated for rape. Okay, I was teaching at a Dharma center. His parents lived near in that same city. He was living with his parents at that time, and they invited me to stay with them. And I remember when I was going to bed saying, there's somebody who was in prison for rape who is sleeping in a room about, how far away? Maybe 15 feet away from me. Yeah. I thought, but I know him and I know I'm safe. Yeah. And sure enough, I woke up the next morning. I stayed a few days there. Yeah. And it was fine. Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm going to sleep in a room near everybody who's been in for rape. You get to know people and you use your wisdom. Yeah. I wouldn't sleep anywhere near Donald Trump. Yeah. Would you sleep anywhere? I mean, this guy, he has hands all over the place. Absolutely. Well, okay. I won't go off on him. Okay. So I'll relate to sentient beings with, patience, recognizing they're doing the best they can, even though I wish they could do better, and I know how they could do better, and I want to tell them how they can do better. Okay? Yeah, don't you want to tell everybody how they can do better? Yeah? Yeah? How they can become exactly what we want them to become. Yeah? Isn't that our role as monastics? We're going to make everybody into virtuous sentient beings, at least when they're around us, so they treat us properly. When they're near our enemies, they can do whatever they want. They can trash them and hurt them. But near us, they should be what we want them to be. And we're going to tell them everything they can do to improve. You're laughing. You don't do that, do you? No. Nobody does that to you, do they? Oh, good. Okay. Now, I do need to tell you that you need to do X, Y, Z a little bit better. Yeah, got it. Okay. No, we see, people are doing what they're capable of doing in that moment. Yeah. And they will do something different in the next moment. Yeah. We like everything to be very stable and predictable. Yeah. Especially in a monastery. Everybody has their job. Yeah. Everybody has their job, not just one job, several jobs, okay? And so, you are responsible. I'm the responsible one. I always show up for everything. But other people, not so responsible. Yeah. But they should be responsible. I mean, we're all living together in a community. Yeah. Why aren't they responsible? Why aren't they doing what they should be doing? For the same reason that we don't always do what we should be doing. Yeah? So what in the world am I criticizing them for? Sometimes we do need to gently remind people of what they should be doing. Yeah. Because it's your day to cook and you're supposed to have 3 helpers and nobody has come and you have to have lunch ready for the community. Yeah. So you kind of have to remind people that they need to come. Yeah. But foremost, we need to look at ourselves and make sure that we're the reliable ones and, we show up where we're supposed to. And if we know we can't, then we tell somebody first, so that they can make other plans or we try and get somebody to substitute for us. Okay, so we relate to them with patience. Yeah, we see them as kind. Yeah. So all the people who cook, when we sit down for lunch every day, do we really think of the kindness of the people who cooked our lunch? Yeah, do we think of the kindness of the people who worked in the fields, and who transported the food we ate, and who packaged it, and who worked at a minimum wage job at a grocery store? Yeah. Do we think of those people? Do we remember their kindness and that we have food because of them? And what about the benefactors, all the people who make offerings to the monastery, and upon whose kindness we depend to eat? Do we remember them? And do we remember to dedicate for them? Okay, so you see how this is all involved in reconfiguring how we look at others. Yeah, we see how we're dependent on them. Yeah? And so you challenge yourself, If you're of the monastic mind, we have to challenge ourselves again, to stop our prejudice, because we have all sorts of prejudices, okay? One of my prejudices, because I grew up in Los Angeles, where there are Hell's Angels. So these guys with leather jackets, beards, shaved heads, motorcycles, who love to turn their motorcycles up as loud as they could possibly be, to show how powerful they are. So, I have this thing with bikers, And so a couple of years ago, somebody got killed outside a bar in a nearby town. And they called us. The family wasn't Buddhist. I have no idea why they called us. She wasn't Buddhist. Yeah, the mother wanted us to do Buddhist prayers for her son, but she herself wasn't Buddhist. And they called us out of the blue because mother lived on the other side of the country. Okay. So her son was also a biker. Yeah. And so we did prayers and so on, for him because he was murdered. And then his friends who were also bikers, they heard about this and they also thanked us for doing prayers for him. And one Sunday afternoon, we hear coming up the road, and who shows up, a biker on a big bike, because you know how the big bikes are the super status symbols when you're a biker, and he comes roaring up on his motorcycle, which actually was the motorcycle of the guy who was killed. And it was painted all different colors and everything. And, somebody calls us to go out and say hello, and I'm going, oh God, there's a biker out there, and this guy was killed outside a bar. It's like, who are his friends? And, so I go outside, And here's this guy, and he takes out an envelope, and he and his biker friends had taken up a collection for the Abbey to say thank you for the prayers that we did for their friend. Okay, I almost melted in place. I was so touched, by what they did. Yeah. And it was like, yippee, that's one more stereotype out the window. I can't put bikers in stereotypes. That's not really fair. And so, to notice how we, make generalizations about different people. All the people from this group are like this, all of them are like that. So there may be general characteristics, but we should remember that people are not those traits. And second of all, they're still kind, sentient beings. And our life depends on them. Yeah? So we shouldn't get into classism, we're from a better class than other people, or racism, or religiosism, oh, those people, the religion they follow, The religion, if people are very involved in wrong ways of thinking or wrong ways of acting, we have to realize that the actions and the thoughts are not the person. And so not to judge the person. Yeah. They all have Buddha nature, so we can see them all as kind.